my favorite time of the week. It's time for your favorite time of the week. It's time for Dave's most feared time of the week. And it's time for, if you're a flute or you're a woodwind player, we know for certainly it is your favorite time of the week. And I want to see flutes in the chat all over the place. I want to see flutes in other pro wrestling shows, chats, and comments. I want to see flutes all over the world. Okay? Because there's a movement. And it's happening right now, and you're all a part of it. And it's via these segments. And this segment is called Dave Meltzer's Dumb Moment of the Week. Let's go. So Davey Wavy comes out and says, and shout out AEW Neckbeards for clipping this, screen grabbing it. So Dave Meltzer says, Raw goes against Stanley Cup Game 7 tonight. It will hurt, but the follow-up of the Wyatt 6, McIntyre stuff, and Money in the Bank qualifying should be a positive. But if it's down or stable, very legit reason. In Canada, nobody expects a good Raw number. Game is way, way bigger there. Raw did a 1.8 million, one of its most successful shows since WrestleMania.
Yeah.
It was up from last week, up again from last week. So Dave, oh no, the game, because that's his excuse for AEW. Oh, the game hurts the ratings. The game. Turns out it's not the goddamn game, Dave. Turns out Raw's just hitting, and again, after when you do a stellar week like WWE did last week, you get good ratings the next week when you do it. I like Wrestling Soup as well, saying, we're doing 620. You know what I mean? I like that. That's a good prediction. I think it'll be close to around that as well, actually. I retract my 700 or 700 and so. Because when they did the 502, I was like, they're going to do 750 or whatever. 720. Nope, not even close. But yeah, dude, Dave just eating his own words again like the Muppet he is. And, he talks about Raw. He has thoughts on Raw. And he says, Dave Meltzer on The Miz's performance on WWE Raw commentary last night. Dave Meltzer says, The Miz on Tony Khan. The Miz on commentary was, I guess the term would be predictable because he said nothing. He was Dave, he said nothing. Really, Dave?
What?
You sure you want to go there with people, Dave? He was essentially The Miz doing one of those promos where he's got the great delivery, but he's got nothing to say. Just got to try and bury The Miz, don't you, Dave? You're just mad because you made up lies about Pat McAfee that weren't true, that we're about to expose in 2 minutes, you asshole. Oh, I'm going to go off on Dave. So, as suspected, at Meltzer said what? The GOAT, ladies and gentlemen, says, as suspected, Dave claims that Jackie Redmond and Kathy Kelly are on Raw and SmackDown as well, which would mean 3 backstage interviewers on SmackDown, proving that he just made up his story about Kayla Braxton being a number 3 backstage interviewer out of thin air. Watch the show, Dave. I've said it a million times. Dave Meltzer does not actually watch WWE, guys. Like, he says it. He fast forwards through it. So, just to bring it back, to reiterate, follow up as I do, via the wrestling purists, Dave Meltzer said there was definitely talks between her. I covered it with Mish from Wrestling Soup there on the last podcast, but he says there definitely was talks between her, Kayla Braxton, and WWE. She was looking into other things as well. We clowned on this. No, she wasn't. Kayla Braxton came out and was like, yeah, no, why would I leave WWE to go AEW? Essentially, like, why would I leave the biggest wrestling company? That's stupid. Shuts down Dave on her way out. Hilarious. So then Meltzer said what? Responds and says, first of all, Jackie Redmond and Kathy Kelly do Raw. Kayla does SmackDown. Second, AEW already has Renee Paquette, Alicia Tout, Lexi Nair, Arcady Aura, Alex Marvez, and RJ City, which is what I said as well. And so why would they need? So she's going to leave being third string, because Dave tried to paint this narrative that, they're pushing Kathy Kelly down down everyone's throats, essentially, and like Kayla Braxton's being pushed down the line, and she doesn't like that. So there are discussions, and it's like, why would she go be 7th string in AEW? Like, that makes no goddamn sense. So then Dave says as much. Like, he speaks it with his own chicken lips. And Meltzer said what? Just calls it out. He just completely talked out of his ass. Further verification he was lying. Here we go.
Later, Kathy is trying to interview him, and she can't, but she does alert us that there were, quote, other victims. And now that the show's over, they never told us who the other victims were. I have no idea. Braun Strowman was fine. Won him. So I don't know who the other victims were.
But they were unknown people.
And by the way, remember we were talking about...
Chris Kaiser.
He might have been killed back there.
Yeah.
Remember we were talking about Kayla? Giving notice and everything? Well, I couldn't help but notice.
Her contract's up.
Well, her contract's up. And you were talking about how she wasn't going to be the number one interview woman, so...
Yeah.
Jackie and Kathy are both on Raw.
Yeah. Well, they're on both shows.
Why can't Kayla be the voice of SmackDown?
That's not my decision.
Man.
She wanted to leave. She wanted to explore other options.
So, Braun Breaker versus Ludwig Kaiser.
She moved to Los Angeles.
Dave's just lying through his teeth, man.
For that reason, so it's not like she's moving to Los Angeles now. She moved already to explore other entertainment options.
So Braun Breaker versus...
And Bryan's just like, dude, stop talking.
Liar!
Like, and yes, she did move there to explore other options, but like, and she had another opportunity, but don't make it like she definitely held talks with AEW. No, dude, she wanted opportunities outside of pro wrestling, as she tweeted out. Like, Dave, you're a sick person, man. Just wait. We're going to get into it even more with McAfee. I'm going to cook this guy. Melthead can F himself and his sidekick. Alvarez at least is just not putting up with it. He doesn't just go, oh, yeah, for sure. He's like, well, why did this happen then, Dave? And then he just kind of moves on. Dave needs to hang it up, dude. It's retirement time for him. I can't wait till Dave gets inducted into his own Observer Hall of Fame. That's how much he sniffs his own farts, dude. Complete clown buffoonery. We're going to get into it more, man. So just exposed by Meltzer said what? This guy tweets to Meltzer and says, so you admit AEW is held to a higher standard. And this came from Dave Meltzer basically coping over the ratings and coping over Raw and being like, well, AEW fans expect more from their shows. So that's why this was rated so good on Cage Match. That's why everyone thinks WWE's doing good. So then Huckleberry McRib goes, great name. So you admit AEW is held to a higher standard. And then Meltzer goes, by its fans, yes. And it's just like, man, you got just coping, seething. And then he's forced to admit WWE RAW does the best rating since its post-WrestleMania 40 episode, per The Observer. Of course, they will admit it. This guy tweets out, someone sent me the Meltzer Alvarez response to episode 3 video of Who Killed WCW, right? Because, of course, they got to chime in. And, of course, The Observer gets brought up about how they're liars and stooges and idiots. Who inducts Dave Meltzer himself, bro? What are you talking about? Shout out Wrestling Soup in the chat. And so this guy says, like, somebody sent me the Meltzer Alvarez reaction. They were still trying to convince everyone that their narrative was right about what happened to WCW, with Meltzer dropping the names of dead promoters to try and validate his BS, which he does. And Eric Bischoff just rips him up and goes, these two parasites have been lying, distorting, and spreading rumors from questionable and dead sources for so long. They defend their garbage takes despite firsthand takes like we heard from in the Who Killed series and incredible research and direct interviews with key players involved in Guy Evans's book, Nitro, The Incredible Rise and Inevitable Collapse of Ted Turner's WCW. Dave Meltzer is being exposed with every breath he takes as the creepy little fraud he's always been. Shout out Eric Bischoff. Never doesn't take a moment to cook Dave. You know what I'm saying? He's like me, bro. I like Eric. I'd buy him a beer if I ever saw him in person, man. And so, man, we get to the ultimate destruction of Dave, right? Like, it almost deserves another flute, which it's getting. Because Dave just lies on top of lies on top of lies on top of lies on top of coping, seething, making up, evoking the names of dead past promoters and all of these things, all to cover his measly little ass. And what have I told you guys? He don't know about WWE. Everything he says about WWE is it's just completely a guess. It's just completely a guess, or people are purposefully stooging him false information. And, I've brought it up ad nauseum. The only reason he knows anything about AEW is because they purposefully stewed to him. And the only reason Dave has any credibility is because he can get pay-per-view numbers. He can
let's talk this Raw show here. A lot went down.
He can get pay-per-view numbers. He can get live attendance numbers. He can get information like that, but he can't use that information to try and, put over AEW. And thus he doesn't stick to what he can verify. He sticks to this he perpetrates and the lies he'd rather make up. And this is just disgusting. Okay. So Pat McAfee, we went over it with, I think, Wrestling Soup. The live, we've been covering it, right? They're invading the McAfee show. Okay. We played the little clip there from Pat McAfee show the other day. I believe I was with Mish, and the Wyatt are sort of invading, that sort of thing. McAfee was missing from commentary. Now, they didn't divulge why, but they also didn't say it's because of the spooky Wyatt family that's going on, right? So you have to assume that WWE, if it was storyline, they would have said like, oh, it has to do with the Wyatt thing, but they did not say that, man. So I assumed it was the Wyatt thing as well. But with that being said, like, why didn't we hear about like Triple H is missing too, or how like they would mention it if it was kayfabe? You know what I mean? So they didn't bring it up. I didn't think anything of it. Raw was pretty stellar again. And so Dave Meltzer, he just invents this whole reason why Pat McAfee was not there. According to Bryan and Dave, Pat McAfee missed Raw clearly due to a storyline reason with the Wyatts. Clearly, from the Observer, clearly, Dave is telling the truth. And clearly, this is clearly what it is from the Observer. So let's play this asshole. Collapse it and play it.
Anyway, let's talk this Raw show here. A lot went down. No Pat McAfee, which
is really weird, but they were in Indianapolis.
They're doing something with him and the Wyatts.
Oh, yeah.
Because Cole said Pat wasn't here tonight, quote, "I'm not going to read too much into that." And he was replaced by The Miz. And this was clearly all storyline because Miz doing commentary and then being, surprised in the middle of the show that you got to defend the tag titles in the main event. I mean, it played into the storyline the entire show.
Miz on commentary was, I guess the term would be
horrible,
predictable, because he said nothing.
He was horrific.
He was essentially the Miz doing one of those promos where he's just got the great delivery.
Oh, he said nothing and they didn't have anything down because it was a last minute thing because it clearly was a storyline. But Pat McAfee comes out and says that his out of nowhere or out of the blue, or maybe he was ill. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. Shout out Pat McAfee. Please do not pull me down for this. But his father-in-law passed away, dude. And it was clearly storyline, and Miz was awful because this, and it was clearly the storyline. That was clearly the reason, and Miz was just awful. Look at how bad they're booking and how bad Raw really is, even though a lot happened and everyone enjoyed it. Here's Pat McAfee.
I couldn't lead the show with this because there was still information being told by my wife and her family to friends and close people to her family. But now that I've been given the go-ahead, yesterday was a day that is obviously a day that'll be remembered forever in our family, because my father-in-law passed away unexpectedly after the show ended yesterday in a hospital here in Indianapolis, Indiana. He had been in the hospital fighting an infection, and on Friday we were told that he was probably going to be discharged by Sunday.
How did Dave Meltzer, my deepest condolences and best wishes and prayers to the McAfee family in this time, truly. Let me get this off, though, Pat. I got you, brother. How did Dave... He's a news guy. He doesn't know that McAfee's got a sick family member. Even if he keeps it private, he's supposed to be the observer, the inside source. He doesn't fact check that before him and Alvarez talk clearly out of their clearly asses, clearly. Pricks.
They had figured it out and he was going to be okay. So we were all in high hopes with incredible optimism. And then yesterday, literally as the show is ending, my wife calls me and says that I have to get to the hospital because there had been an emergency. So I head over there, and what my wife and her mom and her aunt and everybody in her family saw go on was her dad being a badass and trying to kick ass and inevitably losing his fight in this particular day. And whenever something blindsides an entire family like.
So guys, I mean, we don't need to, I'm not going to play the whole thing here, but just deepest condolences. But Dave is such an asshole,
Liar!
man.
Tell us what you know, you goddamn liar!
Like, it's absolutely disgusting. And then, so then Dave Scherer,
nothing to say,
who I reached out to, I was like, dude, you're a legend. The listeners love you. You're on, like, I show your tweets all the time. I put him on blast, not on blast, but I said it publicly because his DMs are closed unless you get the blue check, and I ain't getting the blue check. I haven't done it for the bookmarks. I ain't doing it to ask nobody a question, but a lot of people liked it. So thank you, PWT Universe, for liking the tweet, because maybe he will come on the show and talk. But Dave Scherer from PWInsider goes, Chim Chim and his uncle Spridell are total embarrassments to my business. I hope the pieces of apologize to Pat's family and own their bad behavior, but I won't hold my breath waiting for that to happen. Dave and Bryan are the B. Let's go. Call them the B. Man, that is just, you couldn't end that on a better note. And with that, that was Dave Meltzer's dumb, despicable, dumb moment of the week.